Welcome to Backstage with Becca with special guest, Delphi Borich. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Backstage with Becca. On this episode, she has participated in regional shows such as Disney's Beauty and the Beast, Disney's The Little Mermaid, Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, and more. She toured with the national tour of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, where she understudied Ella, and currently she's in Into the Woods on Broadway, where she understudies Little Red, Lucinda, Florinda, and Rapunzel. Please welcome Delphi Borich.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you virtually.
Yeah.
How are you doing today?
Great, I'm doing great.
Fantastic. Yay. Well, fantastic. Thank you for joining me on this today. I'm so excited to have you on. I know you made history recently, which is so cool.
Thank you so much.
I mean, and I'm going to get into that later. So, first of all, have you always known that you wanted to be a theater performer and entertain people for a living?
Yeah, there was maybe like a year when I wanted to be a doctor, but aside from that, yeah, pretty much always just wanted to be an actor. I grew up watching a lot of like old movie musicals. So yeah, it's just always been around.
I mean, a doctor is quite different from being a performer.
Very different. I don't know where that came from.
A whole other study.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the childhood dreams of like, I think a lot of people want to be like an astronaut.
Yeah.
Growing up, and then they realize that they're like scared of heights or something. Right. They're like scared of going upside down, and they're like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah, I'm scared of needles, so doctor probably was not the best choice.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
probably not. Didn't think that one through originally. So you grew up in all different places. I saw.
Yeah.
Growing up, living in so many different places, how did you continuously find theater to get involved in around the globe?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the great thing about theater is like, you know, no matter what your background, no matter where you are, theater's always there. And it's such a unifying art form that it's like, you know, especially if you're coming into a school and you've never, you don't know anyone or anything like that, it's an automatic bonding experience. And so I think that's probably one of the reasons why I love it so much is no matter where I went, I could still do it. Yeah. So in that sense, it's really helped a lot growing up and having to move every 3 years.
Yeah. And the theater community, I feel like is so great. It's like a one-of-a-kind community kind of where it's a lot smaller than you think it is.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone's like, you know, you start a new show, everyone's starting over, just like you are. You know, if chances are most people don't know each other previously, or they might know like one person previously. So growing up and having to like start over all the time, that aspect of theater of going into a new show and like meeting a whole new group of people, I've been training my whole life for that. So
it's so cool. And you know, you have connections from like all over the globe, which must be really cool too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like a one of a kind of opportunity, and kind of not many people get to say like, hey, like I've worked with people in this city and this city and this city.
Yeah.
In different countries.
Yeah, definitely.
Where has your favorite place to do regional theater been?
It's a great question. I really loved Dallas.
In Dallas.
Yeah, you're in Dallas?
Uh-huh.
Oh my God. Yeah, I did a show at DTC. It's actually where I met my partner. So yeah, it's a very like sentimental value type of situation, but also just in general, I really love the city. I love getting to know the city. And then Seattle also was like absolutely insane. And I'm a big foodie, so getting them to go around and like eat different types of food, that was all amazing, was really, really cool.
Oh yes, I haven't ever been to Seattle, but I've heard so many great things about like
highly recommend it.
Touristy stuff there, and I'm like, one day I'm gonna go and I'm gonna be like the most touristy person that they've ever seen enter their city.
Absolutely, yeah, you got to try all the food for sure.
Yes, any
recommendations? I will definitely send them to you. Although there are a couple places that have closed since,
Yeah.
during the pandemic, which was so unfortunate. But I think a good few of them are still there. So I'll definitely
Yes.
send you those.
And I did see when I was like looking on your website last night, I did see that you performed at Dallas Theater Center.
Yeah.
So you did 12th night there.
Yes.
What I mean, why was that experience, besides like the fact you met your partner there? Why was it so special to you?
That was my first Shakespeare show.
Ooh.
Yeah, I had studied abroad at Shakespeare's Globe, so I felt very comfortable with Shakespeare, and that was always something that I wanted to do professionally. Yeah, so it's just like finally getting to do it, also getting to play one of like, I think one of Shakespeare's best female characters of all time. Was just so fun, and getting to, I had this amazing wig that was like a short pixie cut wig to make me look like a boy, and I loved that wig. It was so well done. So just, little things like that. Yeah, it was great. It was fantastic.
I feel that people like often don't like nowadays, in like the modern days, people are like kind of like are like Shakespeare, like blow it off, but you're like the second person I've talked to who's a fan
Oh yeah,
of Shakespeare, and I really like that's like the root of theater.
absolutely.
Huge root of
Absolutely.
theater.
Yeah, and I think that people kind of shy away from Shakespeare because they think it's harder than it is. There's this whole
Yeah.
stigma where it's like very difficult, and in some ways it is. The whole like translation of it
Yes.
is can be difficult at times, but once you get the hang of it, once you start to understand the structure and the rules to it, it's actually really easy because he gives you every single thing on the page. He gives you where to breathe. He gives you, acting choices based on how many syllables are in a phrase, little things like that, where I just love it because it's honestly like solving a puzzle. And I like
Yes.
puzzles. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
So
Yeah. I love it.
growing up, how do you think you went about becoming a well-rounded performer? Do you think it has to do with maybe learning Shakespeare at all, or
Yeah, I think I've always been a pretty curious person, so I think that definitely helps. I'm fascinated with like a lot of different things outside of theater as well, and my parents were great about making sure that I was very focused on school, making sure that I knew that, if okay, you want to be an actor, great, but you need to get into these schools, so school is a priority. So I think that helped a lot, but then also I think just traveling so much. My parents are big travelers. My mom used to be a travel agent. And so, yeah, we have traveled a lot. So I think that definitely has helped shape, just kind of like an awareness of a world outside of where I was immediately living.
before I get into like touring adventures with Cinderella, I want
Yeah.
to ask, so do you remember what the first show you were ever in when you were like, I want to do this for the rest of my life was?
Oh, I want to do this for the rest of my life. Maybe I think Once Upon a Mattress when I was in seventh grade.
I
I
mean,
played
that's kind of the
Harden. Yeah, yeah. I had done a play in elementary school. They were doing the Pied Piper of Hamelin, and there were no female lead roles in that show. And so, I went home and I really just wanted to be a part of it, and I wanted to be a big part of it. And I was talking to my dad, and somehow in this discussion, we realized that I should audition for the mayor of, it didn't matter that I was a girl. Why don't I audition for the mayor? So I did, and I ended up, like having a fake beard and like we put a pillow in my shirt and like, but I ended up auditioning and getting it. And so I remember, I think the whole like idea of you can do whatever you want as an actor, like you can be whoever you want to be, probably started there. But I think doing Once Upon a Mattress was probably the first time that I was like, yeah, like this, I love this. I want to do this. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Like seventh grade is around the time like you start really like discovering yourself, and you're like, I mean, you're still super young, but it's like I think I have a passion for this.
Yeah, definitely.
Do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you went on the national tour of Cinderella, where
Yes.
you Ella.
Mhm.
What was your whole audition experience like for that show? And have you always been a fan of like Rodgers and Hammerstein?
Yeah, absolutely. Through college, it became pretty clear to me that that was going to be more so where I was headed, in that sort of style of singing. And there was an open call for it, and my mom was in town because I was going through a breakup, and she came to take care of me for a week or a few days or something like that. And so I said to her, like, there's this open call for Cinderella. I don't know, like, I don't really feel up to it. I was still in school at the time too. We were, technically it's a study abroad program, but we were in New York City, finishing up our last semester of school. And people had started auditioning, and I was starting to like kind of freak out about not having a summer job. And a lot of my friends already had booked stuff. And so I kind of went on a whim, and then, it was a pretty long process. I think there were like 6 different auditions as I was auditioning to play Ella. And then I didn't get that one. They let me know that I didn't get Ella, but they said, hey, can you come in for the understudy? So then I went, and there were 3 girls auditioning for the understudy, and then I ended up getting it. So yeah, so then that took away my anxiety of not having a job post graduation.
Yes. And I mean, I'm sure when someone goes and like books an understudy role, like they're prepared for the fact that they're like covering a role, learning 2 different tracks and stuff.
Yeah.
But like what goes into that preparation? Because like it always wows me that like understudies learn multiple tracks and swings learn multiple tracks. And like that wouldn't fit in my brain.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a miracle that it has been fitting into mine, especially with this show, but that I'm in right now. But
Right.
with Cinderella, it was actually, I think, honestly harder because I was also in the show. So I'm trying to learn my own stuff, but then also trying to like peek over and see what she's doing. And I covered 2 roles in that show. I covered the fairy godmother as well.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So I was just trying to like, it's a little bit, your head's all over the place, but color coding is my absolute go-to. I'm not organized as a person, but I'm very organized when it comes to theater. So yeah, just color coding, making sure that I had everything highlighted in specific colors so that my brain can, kind of switch on and off between tracks. Yeah.
Yes. So at what point in like the rehearsal process, do you start going about like trying to make the character, bring yourself to the character and make the characters your own?
Yeah, I try to have little moments like that all throughout the process. Like with Into the Woods, it's, very much watching someone's version of it and soaking that in because you want to stay true to their version of the role in the show. But then also like there are little opportunities here and there to make it your own. And so I had kind of gone in feeling like, okay, this is something that I would do this way. This is something that I would do this way. So it's kind of like the baseline of the character. You're trying to stay true to, the timing that the person has so that you don't throw off other actors with the way that you time it. That's very, very important. Traffic patterns, stuff like that. That's super important. But then, if it's just you and it's not, if it's not getting in anyone's way, then I always think like, make it your own. Do what you want to do with it.
Yeah. And speaking of touring, I mean, you're doing 8 shows a week.
Yeah.
And you're traveling the country. Yeah. How do you keep up the stamina and like stay healthy on the road?
Crazy. It's getting a lot of sleep when you can, and making sure, this is a weird one, but making sure you put a wet towel over your fan in your room, or your heater or whatever it is, because that, some of those hotels, they dry you out. So just making sure that you're doing that so that you can sleep well, and that you don't lose your voice. Yeah, but just taking as much time to relax as you can. And then also like taking time for yourself, making sure that you have moments where you can like go off and spend some time alone is what I realized was really important for me.
Yeah. And you get to like, you can like kind of find time to explore the city that you're in that week.
Definitely.
I'm curious, did you go to like Las Vegas on the Cinderella tour ever? Because I've heard so many things about performing in Las Vegas.
We didn't go to, I don't think we went to Vegas. We might have gone, I think we went somewhere outside of Vegas. I don't want to misquote myself. Yeah, I think we went somewhere in Nevada, but not Vegas proper. I think it all starts to like kind of melt into my brain. I don't a lot of stops I don't remember.
I've just heard so much about like the like altitude there and like the dry heat there being like so tough.
Yeah, there were definitely a few cities where that was the case, where, you know, altitude, so then you're dancing in the ball and you're like, why is this harder today than it ever has been before? It's so weird. Yeah,
it's crazy how like that kind of like can affect you more than you think it will.
Definitely.
About it.
Yeah, but it's kind of fun because you get to learn how to, you know, you're doing the same show for, in our case, 10 months. Yeah. So any sort of like challenge that comes your way almost becomes like a fun game to play for yourself. And, you know, there were theaters that were smaller than others, so they wouldn't be able to put down pieces of the deck. So then all of a sudden, the place where you're supposed to be dancing, there's a big like little cutout where you're supposed to be dancing, but there's no stage there. So you're like, okay, I got to figure out how to adjust. And then you feel really cool for being able to tackle that.
Yes. I mean, as you should.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your Ella debut like on the tour?
Ella debut was amazing. I was lucky enough to have had a put in. So I didn't, you know, I felt good about that. But really, it's just like, that track is just nonstop. Pretty much, you don't really get a break, especially when you hit a certain point in the show. You're just running around. And then the costume changes are very, very overwhelming, especially because some of them happen on stage. And so you're like, okay, I hope this works. Like, you know, so that aspect to it was nerve-wracking, but like really, really fun and emotional. And yeah, it was amazing. It was really cool.
And I haven't ever, it's crazy, I haven't ever seen Cinderella, the Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella live, but I mean, complex show. So like, I mean, there's a lot to it. Mm-hmm. So like, how fun was it getting to, I don't know how many times you got to be Ella, but how fun was it getting to step into the shoes of like such an iconic character in an iconic show?
Yeah, for me, those types of roles always hold a little bit more weight because, you know, I'm a mixed race Asian American woman. And so I feel like the gravity of that anytime I'm playing like a, you know, princess role and getting to just, you know, be that representation that maybe even if it's like one kid in the audience who's seeing that and it, you know, makes them see themselves differently. That's if I've done that, then my job is, as far as I'm concerned, my job is done. So yeah, that aspect to me is always overwhelming. And I don't think that they had an Asian American Cinderella at that point on the tour prior or even on Broadway. So I think so that felt really cool.
That's so important it's so important for kids to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And speaking of that, before I get into the Woods, I saw that you played Belle and Ariel on stage too.
Yes.
So, I mean, how cool is that, getting to perform those roles for kids and having like kids come up to you after the show and be like, oh my gosh, Belle, Ariel.
Yeah. I never ever thought that my career would go that way. I never thought that that's what I would be doing. And it's just really wonderful. And both of those shows in particular were in Houston, which has one of the most diverse populations in the country. And so, yeah, it was just like really overwhelming. And when I was playing Belle, we actually did the Thanksgiving Day parade. And when we were on the float and just looking out and seeing all of the kids who were people of color, like, that was a moment where I was like, oh my God, thinking back to all the times I'd been to like Disneyland and, you know, I'd never seen someone who looked exactly like me on a float. And yeah, and just thinking like, that's just so cool that I get to do this. And yeah, I'm very, very fortunate to have that sort of feeling and experience.
Yes, showing kids that they can be any princess they want to be, any
Exactly.
character they want to be.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
it's so great. So, do you have a favorite Disney princess who you would love to be on stage one day, who you haven't been yet?
Um, Meg in Hercules. I
Yes.
love Meg. I think she's so great and sassy, and but I really, really do love Belle. I really loved her growing up. I think Belle and Jasmine were like my favorites. So yeah,
Yeah, Belle, Jasmine, and Ariel were like my go-to as a kid.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So, I want to talk Into the Woods because you're currently in Into the Woods on Broadway, which huge, by the way.
Thank you.
So, what was your audition process like for it? Did you audition when you heard it was transferring to Broadway?
Yeah. So the City Center production happened, and then all of a sudden it was going to Broadway, right? And I kept thinking like, oh man, that's so cool. Like I missed the City Center production, so I was like, great, I get to see it. And then all of a sudden I got a call from my agents on a Thursday saying, hey, this is for Into the Woods. They want you to send in like 2 or 3 songs. They can be anything you want. They can be from past auditions that you already have filmed. They can be from concerts you've done, whatever you want, just 2 to 3 songs. Here are the tracks that you were going in for. So then the tape was due on Tuesday. So I was like, you know what? I'm starting from scratch. This has to be perfect. Monday, I spent 2 hours like just filming and perfecting and everything like that. And so I sang 3 songs, which were all cuts. It was Green Finch and Linnet Bird, a cut of My Friend the Dictionary for Little Red to show something different, and then He Was Tall from Cinderella. So I did those and I sent them in Monday night, and then Wednesday my agents called and said, hey, so just so you know, like they're really strongly considering you for this. They just want to make sure that you're available. Rehearsals start Monday. So I was like, oh. And then the next day I was at my day job and they called me, and I went into a little cubicle, soundproof cubicle, and my agent was like, hey, so you're going to have to quit your job because you're going to be making your Broadway debut and Into the Woods on Broadway. So it happened very fast, and was the fastest audition process of my life. And yeah, I walked out and went straight to my manager and was sobbing and was like, hey, I have to quit.
You're like, I'm making my Broadway debut. I'll give you tickets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they were so nice about it and so sweet. And he was like, get out of here. And I was like, yeah, but I'm supposed to work till 5. And he's like, no, get out of here.
Like,
so,
you have stuff to do.
Yeah. He's like, go call your parents. And I was like,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was crazy. It really was just one tape and that's it.
A whirlwind.
Wow, whirlwind.
I mean, what was your thought when your manager was like, hey, so you're going in to understudy 4 roles?
Yeah.
Were you like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I was just so thrilled to get to make my Broadway debut, really. Yeah. And because I had understudied before, I was excited. I was a little bit nervous about it only because I didn't know the show as well as I felt like I should at that point. And so I was a little like, okay, I have a lot of work to do. But things came together really quickly, and it's just been great. It hasn't been too stressful. You just take it piece by piece, and now I feel like all the understudies are at a point where we feel very comfortable and relaxed and we're ready. And yeah. So
I'm curious, what's it like going into a show that you're like a longtime fan of versus going into a show that you're like, hey, maybe I don't know this show as well? Do you feel like you have more freedom with the show that you like don't know as well to like go about it in your own direction?
I feel like I had been a fan of this show for a very long time. I just didn't know it very well, only because I have auditioned for this show in different capacities, maybe like 5 or 6 times, and I've never gotten it. And so because it's been my favorite musical for a very long time, despite not knowing every single word of it. Because I love the story. I love the, the PBS special of the original. Like, I'd watched it so many times and loved it so, so much. And for me, it felt like if I never get to do this show, it's going to be heartbreaking to me. And it's very much a show that I wanted to like age through. I wanted to, I didn't ever think that I would ever play Little Red, but, in an ideal world, I wanted to play Little Red and then play Cinderella and then play Baker's Wife, which is like my absolute dream role of all time.
One day I'm manifesting.
One day. Yeah. I'm hoping. So, it just felt like, okay, like I'm going to be really heartbroken if I never do this show. So I just kind of tried to stay away from it. That being said, I don't know about like feeling the freedom of it. I think the freedom of it for me came with going on and getting through the first show and feeling like, oh my God, I got through it, thank goodness. But then our associate choreographer came up to me and said, like, you can do more. You can go more full out, this part of the show that you do, this one line, that's like at a 10. So everything else can be like that, do what you want, like have more fun. And so the freedom came with that. Cause honestly, I hadn't really had time to think about like having fun in the show. I think I was so focused on just learning it. So having that sort of, pass to go and have fun, then I started exploring more and having more fun. And now, I feel a little bit more like I can play with the other stuff that I'm covering too.
Yeah. I'm curious, during the rehearsal process, did you get any advice? Because several big name, huge name Broadway veterans are in your cast. Did you get any advice from them that you'll remember for the rest of your life about the theater industry?
Joshua Henry is like a constant cheerleader and supporter. And the first time that I think Jason Forbach was going on for the Baker, it was a very, very exciting time because that was like the biggest role that an understudy had gone on for at the time. And it was the day before opening night. And we did a little huddle. We do a little huddle every time someone's making their debut. And Joshua said, we are so lucky to have this stress. There are people who dream of having the stress that we have right now. And that has been like a great reminder every time we feel like, panicked or stressed about something. That's come back a lot. But overall, like, everyone is so down to earth that it's not like they're going around like giving advice because they see us as peers. You know what I mean? If we asked for it, they would totally, give us advice, but they're just so down to earth and they really do treat everyone like equals. So yeah.
That's amazing. And I love the Broadway, like the huddles on stage. That's so just like, it feels like you're like watching, because I see like behind the scenes stuff of like all these group huddles on stage or like after debuts, and I'm like, that's like, it feels like you're watching like a huge like founded like family, like just celebrating each other.
Yeah it's the like one of the most supportive casts I have ever been a part of. It's crazy.
I love that so much. So at what point of the rehearsal process did you like start learning the roles, and what role did you learn first? I assume Little Red, or maybe no?
I kind of did everything at the same time.
Wow.
First step for me was making sure that I got everything down on paper. I'm very much like a note taker and I'm very much like a visual learner. So I needed to make sure that I had everything down on paper and I color coded everything. So, if you look at my script, it's like everything for Little Red is obviously in a red pen. And then everything for Florinda is in a blue pen. And Lucinda is green and Rapunzel is purple. And Milky White is in pencil right now because I ran out of colors. And anything that is a note for everyone to do is in a black pen. So I, would write everything down furiously. I have charts for formations and things like that I look at, lots of video taking, just in case I need to like prep myself really quickly before I go on for something. But yeah, it kind of all happened at the same time. And then I started learning lines, and some of them came really naturally because you're just watching the scene and you just know who's, you just start kind of like, oh yeah, this person's about to speak because they're directly being spoken to. But Little Red, I had to sit down a little bit more and learn that. But weirdly, the words came really easily. It did not take very much time at all. And I mean, honestly, right now, Milky White was added for me after the fact. We had a little puppeteering workshop and they wanted to add on a third cover. So I got it. And so now I'm a little bit more in the zone of like watching Kennedy Kanagawa like constantly and just seeing what he's doing and trying to get my body used to that. Yeah. And the cow's heavy. So
I was going to say, you're now a puppeteer.
I'm a puppeteer as well. Yes.
I mean, put that on your resume, special skills.
Exactly.
That's so impressive. I just talked to F. Michael Haney from the Frozen tour, who does the puppetry for Olaf.
Right. Yeah. And oh my gosh.
That's so like
that's an even bigger puppet. Fast. Yeah.
Crazy. So good. I mean, good for you.
Thank you. It's fun. It's really fun.
You're like challenging yourself, and you're like, yes, I'll take that on.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what was your Little Red debut like? I know, exciting moment. History was made.
Yeah.
On stage.
Yeah. That was the most meaningful part for me. Is the fact I had been so terrified to go on for that role. I didn't really think I could do it. And the day that I kind of thought to myself, has there ever been an Asian Little Red on Broadway? I did my research. I looked at everyone who's ever been a cover for Little Red. And I was like, no, I would be the first person of color even, I think, to play Little Red. And so when I realized that, then I was like, I have to do this. I hope at some point, even if it's one show, I hope it happens because I feel like I have a responsibility. And then it happened. And honestly, I felt really prepared. I felt really calm, which was a great feeling to have. And I also just really wanted to make sure that I stayed calm in front of everyone else because I didn't want anyone to be nervous about me going on. So I was very much, no matter how I was feeling, which I really wasn't that nervous, but no matter how I was feeling nerve-wise, I kept it together and just was like, yeah, I'm great. I'm excited. I'm good. And yeah, it happened. And I was lucky enough to have a lot of my friends come and come see it and support. And so that was really, really wonderful. And yeah, it's, there's a sort of like confidence that I feel like I can carry around with me now, having done probably the most insane, nerve-wracking thing I've ever done.
I mean, and was Little Red your first to go on for?
Yeah.
So you made your Broadway debut during that too.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is huge.
Yeah.
Like it's too groundbreaking.
Yeah.
That it's a groundbreaking.
Principal debut and Broadway debut all in one. Just got it all over.
Wow. Yeah, just like knocked everything out on the same day.
Right. Yeah.
and you're doing a Stephen Sondheim musical during such a special year.
Yeah.
So how great is it to be able to pay tribute to Stephen Sondheim and all his genius work?
It feels like he's always with us, really, truly. We talked about him so much in the rehearsal process, and like, it's so strange that we don't get to have him as part of the process, but it's a production that was, that was blessed by him before he passed away. And so that's really special. And I think we all, anytime we're in a group situation, we take a second to like think about him and the fact that he's created this amazing musical. Yeah.
So I think one of the cool things about this Into the Woods production is that like the set, from what I've seen, is very minimal.
Yeah.
How as an actress is that cool and like challenging for you on stage to have a minimal set?
Yeah, it's honestly, it makes everything easier in terms of being a cover because you have less to deal with. You have less, like, you don't have scenery moving around you, which is like so much of backstage traffic is a little bit easier because you don't have to worry about like possibly getting run over by a set piece. So in that sense, it's great. But also what I've been hearing a lot from people who have come to see the show is that, it really just makes you focus on the storytelling, and it makes the storytelling that much stronger because we don't have any like spectacle to rely on aside from our like gorgeous orchestra that's on set. Like that's our spectacle. You know what I mean? So yeah, that aspect of it makes it more vulnerable for sure, because you don't have anything really to fall back on. You just have the words and the music, but that's with Sondheim, that's all you need.
Yes. I mean, and also I feel like you maybe have had audience members who have come and seen the show and never seen Into the Woods before.
Yeah.
And Into the Woods, when you're like thinking Into the Woods, I feel like for some reason it sounds like fairy tale-ish and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's pretty dark.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So do you hear like reactions in the audience every night? Like, what is going on? Like,
yeah, definitely.
Funny reactions. Have you like gotten, I know like stage door isn't really a thing, but have you like heard people being like, I was not expecting that at stage door?
Yeah, definitely. We can't have too much contact at stage door. We can't like assign programs or anything like that, but we can do like a little wave, and I think most everyone tries to make an effort to do that. But yeah, it's I think what's most interesting is our version is very funny. It's very like, we play into the camp, I think, very well. And so, the first act is hilarious in a way that I've like, not seen as much since the original production. And so when the second act happens and everything starts to go down, it's like everyone, what I've been hearing is that it's so emotional, but there are also still like moments of levity. So you really do hear people laughing in certain moments. And as the actor, you're like, why are they laughing? Like, what, we're supposed to make them sad right now. But what we've discovered as a company is like, that's good, because that we need moments of levity in dark times. And yeah, I'm not sure that people really expect how heavy hitting it's going to be, but it seems like we're hitting people in the right spot emotionally. So yeah.
I'm in like the theater Twitter group on Twitter, and I constantly see like different people who are like, I've never seen Into the Woods before, but I went today and no one told me it was going to be that the story was like this.
Yeah, it's definitely a shocker, because you think this story's over after you're like, great.
And you're like, it's gonna be a happy show.
Yeah, but
it's work out well.
Yeah, too is so necessary, because I think so many of the lessons of the show are in that act. So
I want to ask, because I'm sure you've been busy doing put-ins. So what is a put-in in theater? Because I feel like that's very important to cover.
Yeah, we've had one put-in so far. Put-ins are when pretty much the whole cast is also called, as well as the understudies being put into the show, or if there's a new cast member, they're being literally put into the show with full costumes, lightings, mics, everything. So it's kind of like a dress rehearsal for them to make sure that they're comfortable, and to also like get the flow of the thing. And usually in rehearsals, they don't have the actual actor to work with, because, the actor's not called, they're working with understudies. So when we were putting in Cheyenne Jackson, we did a put-in, we also used that put-in to put in Diane Phelan as Rapunzel. Who else was it? Alex Joseph Grayson for Cinderella's father, because he had some dates lined up, and then also Felicia Curry for the witch, since she's making her debut this week, Thursday. So they basically did that for those three understudies, because Cheyenne didn't interact with those roles at all. And so then the rest of the company, the people who he does interact with in the show, were called. So that was our put-in, but that was our only put-in.
Oh my goodness.
So far. Yeah.
Wow.
So a lot of us did not have a put-in before going in.
Oh my goodness. And that's like, you're like probably like waiting on like the edge of your seat, like, am I gonna have a put-in, or like?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, like, if I could do Little Red without a put-in, like, I'm okay. I will be okay.
Wait,
Yeah.
you did Little Red without a pudding?
Yeah. No
I
pudding.
mean,
I've never done any of it. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That's I did not know that, but props to you. That's
Thank
amazing.
you. We
So,
had rehearsals. We had
yeah.
rehearsals. I had never run through the full show.
I mean, still, it's like it's probably hard not running through the full show with the cast and being like, okay, so this is my first time doing a run through
Yeah.
and I'm making my debut.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. I can't explain it. I felt so like prepared that I really just felt like, yeah, we're doing this. Like,
Yes.
fine. We ran through like some stuff that I like, wanted to get my hands on, like prop stuff. But other than that, yeah.
Wow. And I'm sure everyone who was in the audience that day is like, I'm a fan.
I hope so.
Probably. Most likely, yes.
Hopefully they didn't see the fear in my eyes.
No. I'm sure they were like, wow, she's good. So why do you think that Into the Woods is such like a popular show? Even now, like for years it's been popular. Why do you think people were so excited for this revival?
I think it really just is like a perfect musical. I really, really do. And the thing about Into the Woods is when it premiered, the original production, it was, in right after / in the midst of the AIDS epidemic. And so it was very much like a healing piece, I think. And when the first revival happened, it was right after 9/11. So it was a healing piece in that sense. So now, obviously, it's a healing piece for COVID. So I think that it's a musical that's been able to help people along the way with things that are happening in the world that sometimes we don't quite understand. And The Giant is pretty much a metaphor for that. How do we overcome this thing that's larger than life that we don't know how to get through? So it's a healing piece. And I think that's why it's so special, aside from also just being really fun and funny and clever, and gives you little nuggets of wisdom all throughout, which is why Sondheim's legacy will live on forever, because he's taught us so much.
Do you have a favorite song or even like favorite lyric from the show, and why?
My favorite song has kind of changes daily, but overall has always been Moments in the Woods. I think it's a really beautiful song from a character who's, proven herself to be very much flawed at this point. And so I think it's just really beautiful and about appreciating what's in front of you. And but my favorite lyric lately has been in No One Is Alone. And it's when Cinderella sings, and the baker saying, "You move just a finger, say the slightest word, something's bound to linger, be heard." And I think that's so beautiful because it really feels like, no matter what you do, no matter how small your action, it's going to make a difference to someone. So at least make yourself heard. Use it for good and use it because you're capable of doing it. So that's been really meaningful to me.
Just like, I want to like dig into like all the Stephen Sondheim lyrics one day and be like, wow, this genius, like everyone knows he's a genius, but like I feel like if you like really dig into the lyrics, then you're like even more like, wow, he wrote masterpieces.
Yeah. And sometimes they're just like one-liners that happen really quick and you don't even think about them. But then when you're doing the show, you take a second and you're like, wow, that's a good line.
Yeah.
All the time. Yeah.
How did he come up with this?
Yeah.
So why should theater fans, whether they're a fan of Into the Woods or they haven't ever seen the show, come and see Into the Woods on Broadway?
It's a special show, and it's like I said, just like a healing show. And I think it makes people feel better. And I think it gives everyone, our audiences, some sort of guidance, no matter what they're dealing with, because all of the characters are dealing with something so different. So I feel like no matter what, there's going to be someone that you in there that you can identify with. And you might walk away having learned something that you had never thought about before. So I think that's wonderful. And then if you're a theater practitioner, just to see these amazing performances of this cast, it's just a masterclass in musical theater acting. I could not ask for a better class just to like constantly learning from these like amazing, legendary actors in our business. So yeah.
Yeah, and you all are professionals together on stage learning, and I'm sure they're learning from you. They'd say that too. Like, I'm learning from everyone in the cast.
Yeah. That's
And
very sweet.
I mean, it's true. And speaking of that, I recently talked to someone who was like, I think everyone should be a swing or an understudy at least for one show, because it's
Definitely.
like a very fulfilling job.
Yeah.
Why do you think swings and understudies are that, like, I call them the MVPs of theater?
Thank you. Yes, everyone should do it once because, and having like done this on tour also, yeah, it started becoming like, very clear to me then, but now it's like even more so. Being an understudy or a swing as a theater practitioner gives you the awareness of so many different parts of the show. And sometimes I think as an actor, it's easy to get really lost in your role, what you're doing, and not really thinking about everyone else on stage, and that's how some people get the reputation of being like an arrogant actor or things like that. But really the theater is like the exact opposite. It's so much about every single person. And being an understudy or a swing, it expands your awareness to everyone who's working around you, because everyone is helping you when you go on in that moment. And it just completely takes away any sort of ego or anything like that. And I really think that you become even more respectful towards your actors. And then when you're in a situation, Joshua Henry talks about it all the time, that he used to be an understudy in a swing. He's done it before. And now the way he treats us is like, I could not ask for a better human. You know what I mean? To be in a show with who's also like crazy famous and like a lead in our show. And he's just so down to earth, as are everyone else, as is everyone else in the show. So I think you just become a better person. You become more empathetic.
Yes, I mean, and you can tell I'm speaking of Joshua Henry, you can tell from like his social media that he's just a kind person, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Yeah, every post I see of his, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's another like something inspiring, like something like wise words from Joshua Henry, probably. Gotta read this caption.
Yeah, he's full of them.
So do you have a dream show that you would love to be in? Obviously Into the Woods is crossed off the bucket list.
Yeah, this has been it since I was in middle school. So I'm definitely at a point in my life where I'm redefining, because never did I think I would ever be on Broadway. Never did I think I would ever get to do Into the Woods. So now I'm just a little bit like, oh boy, okay, now what do I want to do? But I do, as I said, really want to play Baker's Wife someday. I'm hoping that happens. And I want to do more Shakespeare. Yeah, I want to do more plays and musicals too. So I don't know. We'll see what the future holds.
Well, I'm gonna manifest Baker's Wife.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's gonna happen one day.
Yes.
And I'm gonna be like, yes, we manifested it. So great. So if you could revive any musical and be in it, what would it be?
Oh, that's a great question. If I could revive any musical. I mean, when I'm older, Bridges of Madison County, I really love.
Yes.
Yeah. I like maybe like one of the classic Rodgers and Hammerstein, like Oklahoma or something like that. But in a more Rodgers and Hammerstein-y way than the current one. Yeah, God, that's such a hard question. Maybe like Once or something. I don't know.
Ooh, yes, I love Once.
Yeah, I want to do Once at some point.
It's so underrated, I think.
Yeah, it's just a beautiful show. Yeah.
Yeah, the music is so stunning.
Yeah.
Everything in it is. And I feel like even like people who aren't musical theater fans like hear a song from Once and they're like, I know that song, but where's it from?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like one of those like super special shows.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So do you have any advice for people in the theater industry, like who are their goal is Broadway and they want to get to Broadway one day, but they're just like working to make ends meet kind of
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah. Just don't give up. Yeah, I mean, it's so cliche, but really, truly don't give up. And also be a good person to work with.
Yeah.
Coming out of the pandemic, every single job that I have had has been based on recommendation, or I'd worked at the theater before. So, and that was like 4 shows in a row that I did. I didn't really come home at all. And that was all purely because I had worked at Tuts before. I was recommended for a production of Spelling Bee, so I went and did that. And then I had worked at Arrow Rock Lyceum Theater before and did 2 shows in a row there. So if you're a good person, if you're fun to work with and easy to work with, and you leave any sort of ego out of it, and you genuinely just want to like be there to, support everyone else, it goes a really long way. And our audition, our first day of rehearsals for Into the Woods, we were told that they did background checks on us to like, call people that we had worked with and kind of gotten their perspectives on us. And so I know for a fact that I would not be doing this job if I, had been difficult to work with. So I think really just always keeping that in mind. And in terms of like people who are trying to make ends meet right now and are having a hard time, just being supportive with your friends who are having successes, because they will show back up for you when you find your success. But yeah, there's something in there for me too about just like treating life as if you're definitely going to get to where you're going, which I definitely did not do. I was constantly stressed about how I was going to get to this point. And now that it's here, it feels like, oh, how much better could my life have been if I just wasn't so stressed about it all the time?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
stress is just like part of life that you like try to knock off and you're like, nope, can't get rid of it.
Yeah. It's just inevitable. But, trying to channel that into different things like your personal life is so important. And I always felt like I needed my professional life to be amazing so that my personal life could be amazing. And in truth, especially because of the pandemic, it became the other way around. The second that my personal life felt really good and strong was when my professional life started flourishing. So yeah,
Yes.
just making sure you're good, making sure you're a well-rounded human. Yeah.
And I was going to say also regional theater is like such a great thing to be a part of.
Yes.
And like that is, you're giving theater to people in different cities who maybe won't have the chance to go to Broadway anytime soon.
Exactly.
And they're like, wow, I'm getting to watch all this talent in my city, like 10 minutes from my house.
Yeah. And like for purely selfish reasons, you get to travel, you get to meet new people, you get to, maybe do a role that you wouldn't be able to do on Broadway, maybe play like a bigger role that you wouldn't be able to play on Broadway, like things like that. It's so valuable. But yes, obviously audiences, bringing it to audiences.
Do you have any regional theaters that you'd want to shout out? Speaking of regional theaters.
Yeah, absolutely. Theater Under the Stars has been one of my feel like artistic homes. They gave me a really big, opportunity with letting me play Belle. They just gave me a platform and they gave me one of the most special experiences of my life. And I feel like some of the, I don't want to say attention, but some of the notice that I've gotten has been from that production and then Little Mermaid as well. And so I'm always grateful to them. And then Arrow Rock Lyceum Theater too, and the artistic director Quinn Gresham have been really special. It's been a special place to work, and he is an incredible person to work with. And so and just all the directors who I've ever worked with, there's always have a hand in like making me better and teaching me something that I didn't know before. So
yes, I have yet to go to Theater Under the Stars, even though I'm in Texas, and one day I'm gonna go there, and
Yeah,
I need to.
you definitely should. Yeah, I mean, it's the production value is amazing. The theater is gorgeous.
That's what I've heard, which is why I'm like, I gotta go, gotta make it a point.
Definitely.
So before I wrap up, how do you work on self-confidence in this industry? Because I mean, it's not a straight line. Nothing's a straight line.
Yeah. I struggle with it so much. So much every day. This has definitely been a big confidence boost. So I feel myself walking around a little differently, but I have my own sort of like insecurities with like what I'm able to do. And I think just trusting that you're special, and even if you don't sing something perfectly, or you feel like you're not getting anywhere, or not getting where you want to be, just like reminding yourself that no matter how you feel about yourself and your confidence level in it all, that you're special, for your own reasons. You have unique things about you that no one else has, and if anything, if you don't give up, someday someone's going to be looking for exactly what you are, because there's only one of you in the world. And so it's kind of worked out that way for me with this. And that, but it's so hard, and it's way easier said than done, and I feel like I should practice what I preach more, but
I mean, hey, everything happens at the right time, and when someone finds you and is like that, like this person is like the missing piece to the puzzle that I've been trying to find for the show,
right?
Like, it all lines up eventually.
Yeah,
which is amazing. So where can people follow you on social media to keep up with you and to like find dates that you're going on for Into the Woods?
At Delphi Borich, DelphiBorich. That's me. And then also we have an understudy account as well. Yeah, it's at Understudies of the Woods. And we do fun stuff on there. We, post some backstage shenanigans, and then we do a live video every Wednesday for Wonder Study Wednesday. So we just kind of put updates on all of us on that page. So that's where you can find me, where you can find us.
Oh, I love that. I love Wonder Study Wednesday.
Yes, Wonder Study Wednesday.
That's so creative.
Yeah,
so because fun. I like walk into theaters and I'm like, I'm gonna go look at the I call them Wonder Studies too. So I'm gonna go look at the Wonder Study board today.
Yeah, it's just our own way of like celebrating each other. Making sure that we are getting like, pushing for like recognition for someone who's like doing a ridiculously hard thing. So it's great. And we have a lot of fun with it.
I mean, good for you all. That's great. So lastly, is there anything that you'd want to promote, whether it's theater related, Into the Woods related or not?
Into the Woods. I don't have a whole lot of other stuff going on. Yeah, come see Into the Woods. It's amazing. Running through October 16th, I believe.
And it just got extended, which is cool, to October. So, I don't think there was any doubt that it would get extended, but
I don't know. We weren't sure for a minute there. We really.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Okay. I think the theater fans were more sure. They were like, it's gonna get extended. And
there was some logistical stuff with the show that was supposed to come in right after, so we were all like, oh man, we can't extend, and then that ended up working out. So
it ended up working.
Well,
thank you so much for coming and joining me and talking about about your amazing theater career on my show today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the wonderful questions.
Thanks for watching this episode of Backstage with Becca B. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Becca B Talks TV. Or for more exclusive content from this interview and more, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Backstage with Becca B. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give me a 5-star rating. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!